We're back here Friday night. I guess we'll just get into the first thing that's happened since our last episode. George Springer on the move to the Blue Jays on a 6-year, $150 million deal. Brandon, first reactions on what it does for the Blue Jays?
Yeah, I mean, it gives them, I guess, they were looking to get someone this offseason, whether it was Lindor or Springer, or just anyone else through a trade. So they at least got someone to add to their lineup. Springer, it was kind of surprising that he got 150. I thought that was probably it seemed like how the market was going. It didn't seem like he was going to get to 150, probably like 120 maybe. So maybe the 6 years helped with that because it at least evens out the money just a little bit more, unless if it was like a 5-year contract or something like that. But maybe it was because also the Blue Jays, one, they play in Toronto normally, so you almost always have to overpay for anyone because you have to play in Toronto, go to the U.S. every single time, go through customs. It's just like not the best place to play in, anyways. But they also may just be playing in Buffalo this year, like they were last year. So there's I guess there's different aspects. So maybe they overpaid for him to account for some of those obstacles that they're going to have to deal with rather this season, and then when everything gets back to normal. But I mean, for him, it's a great contract. He's 31, so it's his last contract that he's going to sign. So him getting 150, I'd say I was surprised by the number, but I think the amount of years kind of counteracts that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a good contract for George Springer. I mean, 6 years, 150 million is a lot. I was in the same boat. I didn't think that, especially, well, because of COVID, because it's the MLB, for some reason, their free agency signings, it just takes so long for people to start signing. And I always think that because of that, sometimes it's going to, impact the amount of money they're signing for. But I mean, at least when you go look at like the Harper signing or the Machado signing, like I didn't think they were gonna get as much money because it took so long. But I mean, Springer got 6 years, 150 million. That's a lot for Springer. In terms of how good he is as a player, I think it'll be, we'll see. I mean, he's always been a solid outfielder. We'll see how his bat is when it's not in as stacked of a lineup. I don't think the Blue Jays are going to win the division this year with Springer. I don't think this makes a difference between them winning the division and not. But I mean, the Blue Jays should be expecting to contend for a wild card spot 100%.
Yeah.
As far as, I mean, are the Rays going to be better than them too? Probably. But they can still easily get a wild card spot. And I mean, I think that's probably their bottom line expectation for next season.
Well, I think I'd say their chance in this division is probably the highest it's been since, they made it back-to-back ALCSs in like 15 and 16. Because the Yankees, I would say they're the clear best team. The two worst teams are the Red Sox and the Orioles. And then you have the Rays, who are still going to be good, but they've definitely lost pieces. I mean, they lost two of their top 5 starters in Morton and Snell. You'd have to hope. I mean, their offense wasn't even great last year. They kind of relied on their pitching. So you're hoping that somehow your offense is going to be better, which they didn't really add anything. So I think the Blue Jays, their lineup's really good. I mean, they have Springer, Bichette, Biggio, Vlad, Teoscar Hernandez, Randall Grichuk, Lourdes Gurriel. So it's a really good lineup. Maybe not as good as Springer was with the Astros, but it's a good enough lineup to where he's going to bat leadoff. He's probably going to do. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's a 275 hitter or 270 hitter. He'll get you 30 homers, 100. Probably close to 100 RBIs, honestly. And he'll play good enough defense in center. Probably in like 2 or 3 years, he's going to have to move to right or left because he's not that good of a center fielder. And again, he's 31, so he's going to have to move at some point. But I would say they're probably, if their pitching can hold up, they're probably the second best team in the division. Just as it seems like the Rays are kind of declining just a little bit. Now, maybe they're still better than the Blue Jays, but I think it's probably pretty close between those two teams. But for the next 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years, the Blue Jays are probably the second best team in the division looking into the future.
I've always consistently underrated the Rays. I mean, they always seem to overperform. Now, I mean, it's typically because they're just kind of like I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, last year they clearly did better than people thought they were going to be. I still think the Rays are probably the second best team in the AL East, but we'll see. I mean, yeah, but this Blue Jays team should expect to compete. And, if their young pieces develop very well, then, I mean, they're going to be up there with the Yankees.
And it looked like they had Michael Brantley, but he went back to the Astros. That would have been, if they would have got Brantley, then it definitely, that would have helped a lot, because then they could trade, like a Grichuk or a Gurriel and get like a pitching, like a starter, or just like anyone, honestly, because they would have had too many outfielders. So if that would have went through, I think that would have made them even better, because I don't know what pitcher they would have been able to trade for, but they definitely, if you trade Gurriel, you could easily get like a pretty good starting pitcher. Probably maybe like a Luis Castillo. You could
Yeah.
possibly package Gurriel and, I don't know, a couple of prospects to get Castillo, and then they'd probably be the second best team at that point.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But as far as baseball is concerned, that's really all that's really happened. I guess we'll just get into the conference championship games. Quickly, I'll mention I am back in the dorm here, so for whatever that means. But also, the Eagles hired their head coach. I believe his name is Sirianni, Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, Nick Sirianni.
He was the Colts offensive coordinator. You'd assume that, well, I'm not exactly sure where the ties are, but I mean, you'd assume that, his plan, and his plan is to continue with Wentz, for the next 10 plus years or whatever, and that he's very content with Wentz as the starting quarterback. My only scare here is, I mean, we've talked about, or, people have talked about the Eagles ownership interfering with head coaches and GMs, and I just don't want this head coach hiring to be a guy that Lurie can control, or the Eagles franchise can control. I mean, I would just prefer, my head coach to not be a puppet almost. And this guy, I've never really heard of him. Or, well, yeah, I've never really done any research on him. So, I mean, we'll see exactly how he does. I'm not too sure what to expect, but I just don't want him to be another Eagles head coach that is fired in 2 years. So, and, I mean, we've seen a lot of the Eagles head coaches that have been fired quickly. I mean, they've shown success. I mean, Peterson showed success. Chip Kelly, I mean, debatable, but I feel like he had some flashes. And Andy Reid, I mean, you can definitely see that they might regret that at this point. So,
Yeah, it seems like this guy. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of right with you. I haven't really heard of him that much, but it seems like he's kind of like the quarterback guy, or at least a quarterback guy. And obviously, it's, they picked Wentz over Peterson. That's the reason Peterson got fired. So Wentz, assuming he doesn't get beat out in training camp or he just doesn't look terrible, he's going to be their starter next season. So I think they're kind of hoping that he can bring him back to what he was 2017, or at least back to like a top 10 able quarterback. But I mean, just looking at their team as a whole, we've talked about this before, but they're probably gonna have to turn the roster over at some point in the next year or two, just because of the players that they're going to lose. The people who are over 30 years old on big contracts were going to come off that, so they're definitely going to lose a lot of these key players. And their team, I mean, their team isn't great just to begin with. I mean, if you just look at their defense, they have no secondary at all. Their linebacker play isn't great. They have good front four, but other than that, on defense, they're terrible. And then on offense, they always have offensive line issues, and they have no wide receivers. So it's not like they're a great team to begin with, but if your quarterback plays better, it definitely helps. So I would say maybe for this year, maybe next year, they could be, assuming that they kind of keep the guys that they have right now, they could be, at that 500. Maybe they can go over if Wentz turns back into a top 10 player. But other than that, I don't really see the upside to this team in the future. But I mean, if you could turn around Wentz, and I think that's really all they care about, at least for right now.
yeah, for sure. We'll get into the NFC Championship game here. I mean, first, big news for the Bucks. Unfortunate news. Antonio Brown's ruled out for the game. I mean, the past, I don't know, couple months, he's emerged in the offense, and now is he like, the number one target by far? Definitely not. I mean, but he was clearly hampered last week. It didn't, make the difference, but I mean, Brown has been incredible in the slot, and I'm not, we'll see what, I mean, the Bucks have so many weapons that it shouldn't matter. But I mean, what's your take for Antonio Brown being out?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going to allow Scotty Miller to play more, which they were doing earlier in the season. And I mean, I like Scotty Miller. So, I mean, obviously he's a slot receiver.
I was a Scotty Miller fan. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
very early on in the season, it was almost like Scotty Miller was the only one that had any sort of chemistry with Brady, to be honest. Because I mean,
Yeah.
Evans didn't, Godwin didn't. I mean, Godwin was hurt too, but I mean, really nobody had chemistry with Brady, and he seemed to just connect with Scotty Miller over and over again. I was like, who is this guy? But I mean, to be honest, he's shown a lot of potential. So
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely bad that Antonio Brown isn't playing because of how well he was playing before. But it's not the worst thing that when you have a guy who clearly has a good connection with Brady, and as soon as he came in last week, they had that big play over the top on the right side. So they clearly have a connection, and it seems like down the field, it seems like they're always going down the field to Scotty Miller, but um, it's definitely not the worst thing because you have a guy like that who can come in. But it's definitely going to hurt because you don't have a playmaker and Antonio Brown. They like to throw screens to him and have him make plays after the catch. So it's definitely going to hurt, but it's not the worst case scenario because you do have a guy like Scotty Miller who can come in and play in that slot.
yeah, just looking at the game in general, I mean, the weather reports are, I mean, what are they? They're like, I want to say they're like 20 degrees, snow's potential. It's going to be
Yeah.
a cold game. So, my first expectation for the Bucks is they've got to be ready for the cold. I know Brady will be, he's the quarterback. So honestly, it's kind of the least important one that you have to be ready for the cold, I guess. I mean, I just, the defense has to be ready for it, especially if there's snow. They got to be ready for that. The wide receivers got to be able to, if there's snow, especially make cuts. Uh, they're just this Bucks team, except for again Brady and maybe a couple others. Like they're just not accustomed to 20-degree weather and especially snow in 20-degree weather. So that's a huge advantage for Green Bay, in my opinion. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to the running game. I mean, whoever can run the ball more effectively, I would say in a game like this, again, it doesn't really seem like it's going to be like snowing or anything like that, but when it's cold, it's hard to tackle. So, I mean, in order to your linebackers and your defensive guys up front to tackle that guy when he gets into the hole and not let him get to that second level, especially the guy like Aaron Jones or AJ Dillon or Jamal Williams, like they kind of have like those three running backs Packers do that they can interchange. I mean, clearly Jones is the best, but they're all pretty interchangeable. I mean, Williams is more of like a pass blocking, catching kind of guy, but still. And Leonard Fournette's played really good. I think, I mean, Ronald Jones is going to play, but is he completely healthy yet? It's probably not. Even though he had that big run last week, if he's not completely healthy, or you're banking on Fournette having another big game, that's going to be tough. He's done it the last 2 weeks, but is he going to be able to do it again? That's a question. So I think that definitely helps the Packers. Now, one thing that helps the Bucks is that Vita Vea is playing this game, and he's probably one of the best run-stopping defensive tackles in the league. Is he going to be completely healthy? Probably not, because I think he got injured in like October, maybe early November. So he's probably not going to be completely healthy. But just having him in there, it's going to force the Packers to think about the run differently because, like I said, he's one of the best run-stopping defensive tackles in the league. So that definitely helps the Bucks, but I'm still leaning Packers. I mean, again, I picked the Packers in this game anyways, but just looking at it from present time, I'm still leaning Packers for a couple reasons. But the running game, I think they can control the run more so than the Bucks can.
Yeah, I mean, all things, whether it be weather, whether it be home field, obviously, I think you could definitely argue the Packers have the overall better roster as well. I mean, you could easily argue that. I mean, all things lean towards taking Packers. Now, I mean, we'll see what happens on game day. Personally, I just have this feeling that it's going to be. Well, first, I have the feeling that this game is going to be a really good game. I'm looking at the weather right now. Just a quick Google. I'm not exactly sure what. Oh, weather.com. The game's at 3 p.m. basically, and it says here that there's a 10% chance of precipitation, which would be snow. So, we'll see on that. Probably not, but if it does snow, I mean, that would be honestly. I mean, what more could you really ask for? Brady Rodgers NFC Championship game. We've never seen Brady and Rodgers play in the playoffs against each other at all. So this is going to be the first time. There's only one bigger stage in the NFC Championship game. So, I'd love to see a quarterback duel, like a shootout, but is that going to happen in 25-ish degree weather, chance of snow? Probably not. But again, I mean, what more can you ask for in this game? I think it's going to be an all-time classic. I think it's going to be a great game. Yeah, I mean, whoever runs the ball better and whoever turns the ball over less is going to win this game for sure. Games in 25-degree weather, if you turn the ball over less than the other team, you dramatically increase your chance of winning the game, and that goes for any football game in general, really. But for some reason, I just got the feeling that the Bucs are going to pull this one out. Not exactly sure what's going to happen, but I'm just
Yeah, I mean
feeling it.
the last time they played, like it was week 6, I want to say it was, and the Bucks won 38-10. And one big thing was that they were blitzing a lot on Rodgers, and it seemed to work. They just got to him. I'm not sure exactly what the stats were in that game, but he definitely was under pressure the entire game. He had 2 picks, a pick six. He probably took a couple sacks, I'd say,
The
and they
pick
really
six
weren't
in that
running.
game, the pick six in that game is what completely transformed the momentum in that game because I mean the
Yeah,
Packers, I want
yeah,
to say were actually ahead
they
maybe,
were
or
up
I don't know if
10-0.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that pick six completely just destroyed the game for Rodgers. You could tell by the body language he was like, and you just when you get in Rodgers' head, he gets rattled sometimes, and I think if you're the Bucks here, you have to get Rodgers rattled because if he's comfortable at home with everything going his way, it's going to be hard to stop that offense. So, will we see a repeat? I would assume the game plan won't look exactly the same as it did. What week was that? Like early on,
I think it
midway
was
through the
week
year,
6,
week
something like
6.
that.
Yeah. Uh, I'd assume the game plan from Bowles would look slightly different. I don't. They did blitz a lot. You kind of have to just hope you're able to rush the quarterback, rushing 4. Um, if the Bucks defense plays how it did last week, then you got things going for you, which would be nice. We'll see what happens, but I think the Bucks honestly probably I would pick them to win this game right now, and I'd pick them to win 24-20, and I think it'll come down to whoever makes the least amount of turnovers. And I think this game will have turnovers. It's a cold game. There's going to be mistakes being made. I think if Tampa's able to commit one less turnover, capitalize on that, whether it be a pick six, a short field, I think that could end up being the difference in the game.
Yeah. I think one big difference is that the Bucks, they seem to need a big play in order to get points. Not saying they can't score points, but it always seems like they're looking for the big play to get down the field, a 50-yard pass, a 50-yard run, something over the top. Now the Packers do that too. They definitely go over the top a couple times, but it seems like they can get down the field more methodically, like have like a 12-play drive, 15-play drive, take time off the clock, and just be able to have drives like that and sustain drives like that. So I think that definitely helps the Packers, especially in a game like this where it's going to be cold. It may snow. If you can like I said, if you can run the ball effectively, that's only going to take more time off the clock. It's going to make the defensive players more tired. They may have to come up. That's the thing. If they could run the ball effectively and the safeties have to move up to, get more in the box or just keep the field more compressed, then that's when they're going to go deep. And it usually seems like it works. I mean, Valdez-Scantling, it always seems like he drops at least one ball. So I think the Bucks would hope that he does drop the ball when they go over the top. The Bucks, I mean, their secondary is going to get beat. They're not great in the secondary. It's a lot of young guys, and they usually get beat. But if they can create a turnover or something, they definitely have a chance, obviously. But I think it's going to be tough if the Packers can get the run game going. It's going to be tough for the Bucks defense to stop them.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Bucks offense to keep up with that run attack on the Packers, I mean, Ronald Jones has to be healthy. He has to play. He basically has to have like a near career day. The play action is obviously going to be huge. You're not going to win the ball with Brady. Most likely here, you're not going to win the ball with Brady throwing the ball 50 times. Evans isn't going to have like Godwin or Evans isn't going to have like a 10 catch, 120-yard day. Most likely, at least I don't think. I just don't think you're going to beat the Packers in that type of game. So you're going to have to do what the 2018 Pats did, which was running the ball with Michelle, except you got Jones, play action passing, and the defense is going to have to make plays when it needs to. And if you can do that, though, I mean, I think this Packers team is completely beatable. People have said that this Packers team doesn't necessarily have a hole, which is true. I also, I'm not sure that they have anything that is, other than Adams, like they don't have this one thing about them that is super, super elite, like a lot of other teams that have won Super Bowls or at least been in them. So we'll see what happens. Another thing
What
is,
would what were you gonna say?
well, I was going to say, assuming Rodgers wins this MVP, I want to say that no MVP has won the Super Bowl in the same year that they actually win the award.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. I mean, you had Matt Ryan 2016 lost to the Patriots, Cam 2015 lost to the Broncos, Brady in 17 lost to the Eagles. So, I mean, that's 3 years in a row where the MVP didn't, they reached the Super Bowl and didn't even win it. And there's probably way more. I mean,
I mean, Mahomes in 2018,
yeah, Mahomes
Lamar in
2018 didn't reach
2019.
it. Yeah. So
There has
it's,
not been an MVP that has won the Super Bowl, as far as I'm
yeah,
aware, in the
I,
same year that they won the award.
yeah. Yeah. Just from what I can remember. Yeah. And probably, since whenever that stat. But what I was going to say is if you're the Bucks, and this was kind of a question last week during the Ram game, if you're the Bucks, do you double Adams or do you play single on Adams and like take away someone else? Like let Adams get his, but don't let anyone else beat you, or you try to stop Adams, but the other guys can beat you. What do you think you would do?
I mean, what I would do is I'm probably putting my second best corner, whoever you want it to be. I don't really care. And I on Adams, and I have safety help over the top, and I probably have my best corner on whoever you want. Uh, at the time, if Scamling or really whoever, uh, and then you kind of just hope that your corners can compete with them one on one. But I'm not letting Adams go for 15 catches, 160 yards, and 2 touchdowns on me. If I'm going to lose the game, I'd like to see them actually try to beat me, and I'd like to see Rodgers have to go through the progressions, and I'd like to have him see, if he's going to beat me, Scamling has to have an 8 catch, 80-yard day, and Adams will have to have, he's going to get his, so he'll have to have 8 yards, 8 catches, 80 yards. But I'm just not letting Devontae Adams kill me every drive on third down, and I just can't let that happen.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. I'd say you have to at least have safety over the top. And it's not like he's going to beat you over the top, but he's such a great route runner that he's almost always open with separation. So I'd probably say that too. Now, the one thing, if you're going to go safety over the top to Adams, or at least rolling safety over there, you definitely can get beat deep on the other side with Lazard and Scantling, which, look, they're going to throw deep at some point. It's going to happen. They always do every game, at least a couple times. And like I said, a couple times it works, a couple times it doesn't. But I can almost guarantee that one of those plays is going to hit. It may not be a touchdown, but it could be a 40-yard catch that takes them from their 30 to, the other side's 30, so, or 40. But that's the only thing with rolling a safety over to Adams every single time. But I think you almost have to, because he's clearly the best playmaker on the field, and just giving the ball to him, I'd rather someone else beat me than Adams. So yeah, I'd probably agree with you with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably have like Davis on Adams with, safety help from Winfield, I guess, probably. And I'd just be like, you guys got to shut down Adams. Like, he can't go for 200 yards, and the rest of the team can focus on everybody else. But yeah, Adams can't break the game open.
Yeah.
We can switch to the AFC game. Well, I mean, just for the record, I guess you're picking the Packers. Do you have a score on that, or?
Um, I'll go 28-24.
All right, and I'll go 24-20. Actually, yeah, I'll go 24-20 Bucks.
All right.
We'll go AFC. Obviously, the Bills are traveling to Arrowhead to play Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now it looks like Mahomes going to play. I don't know if that's actually technically confirmed yet, but it's 99%. Mahomes is going to play.
Yeah.
Now it's, my read on this game is I would say the defenses are fairly equal. I think you could probably give the Chiefs the advantage defensively, but it's not by a lot. Offensively, I still give the Chiefs the advantage. I know that, and this is, I have to say this, that the Bills offense has played much better as of recent, but on paper, I have to take the Chiefs offense over the Bills offense. Now, it's going to come down to Allen, and it's going to come down to probably Stephon Diggs. Looking at the Bills, you're probably not going to have the game plan of run the ball and keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. If you had an actual running game, like a really good running game, you could definitely try for that. But the Bills' running game just isn't good enough, in my opinion, to really try for that game plan. I think if you're going to beat this Chiefs team, you have to outduel Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, am I going to bet on that? Definitely not. But again, as of recent, I mean, Allen has had the better stats. He's looked like the better quarterback. Now, I don't think he is, but the last probably a month and a half of the regular season, Allen performed much better, and the Bills team was much better in general. Diggs is going to have a huge day. Diggs is going to have to go for 150 yards, 10 catches, 2 touchdowns. Anything short of that, I don't know that I can see the Bills winning. I don't see them winning in a defensive game. I don't see them running the ball all over the Chiefs defense. If you look at when the Chiefs lose, it's typically because their offense gets outdueled. And I think if the Bills are going to have a chance at winning this, Allen's going to have to play better than Mahomes.
He's definitely gonna have to play better than him. But the thing is, when you're looking at the Chiefs, and we said it all season that they were clearly the best team, but those last couple weeks happened and they definitely weren't great. They played, I think it was 6 straight 1-possession games. I guess now 7 with, they had the week 17 against Chargers, but 7 counting the Browns. They still haven't looked great. And, Mahomes got injured in last week's game, but they scored 22 points with Mahomes and they didn't really look that amazing. And, the game, I mean, if the fumble out of the end zone doesn't happen, he's down to 1 or just a touchdown. I mean, there's just so many things that could have happened in that game that the Browns actually could have won that game. And so I've been on the Bills probably since the middle of the season, I would say. And again, I picked the Bills to beat the Chiefs in this game anyways, and I still stick by that. I'm going with the Bills in this game. Seems like you're going with the Chiefs, but I've not been that impressed with the Chiefs and how they've been playing. And I wasn't that impressed last week. I still think their defense it's good and it can be great when it has to. And they have playmakers on their defense in Matthew and Chris Jones, but I just don't see what I saw last year in the Chiefs this year. And I think the Bills, and the thing with the Bills is that the first game, their offense was great, but their defense was bad. The second game, their offense was bad, but their defense was great. So they haven't even put a complete game together, and they still won against 2 pretty good teams. I mean, the Colts, I'd say they're one of the best teams that made the playoffs in the AFC, and the Ravens, who were super hot. Now, they didn't look great, but they were one of the hottest teams going into the playoffs. So if they can put somewhat of a complete game together, then I mean, it's hard to look at the Bills and say that they aren't playing better than the Chiefs are right now. So I mean, I'd go with the Bills for that.
I mean, I think we were both expecting, at some point in the regular season, even in the divisional game, although, Mahomes did get injured in that game, we were expecting the Chiefs to at least flip the switch at some point and turn into probably in an instant exactly what they were last season in the playoffs. And we haven't seen it yet. We haven't really seen it. We haven't seen them play a complete game. We haven't seen what we saw last year yet. And I guess I'm just betting on the fact that we will kind of see that. We haven't yet though. Now, I guess I don't know what it is. Is it the Super Bowl hangover? Is it they just don't feel like they've played any worthy teams or whatever, like teams that they need to try against? I mean, if I was the Chiefs and I was looking at the Browns coming into me next week, in the divisional round, I'd be like, well, this is a free win. And I wouldn't, actually necessarily say or think it, but it's a little bit different when you're hosting the Browns versus when you're hosting the Bills or, something like that, or in the Super Bowl last year when you were playing the 49ers, when there are many people picking the Bills to beat you. Last week, there was nobody picking the Browns to beat the Chiefs. So I think this might be, I think we'll probably see the MVP Mahomes. I think we'll probably see, what made this Chiefs team so great last year. And I think that the Chiefs are going to beat the Bills. I think it'll be a good game for sure. I think Allen will have a good game. I think Diggs will have a good game. But at the end of the day, I think Mahomes will make the plays when it matters the most. And I don't know if Allen will make them. So yeah, I mean, I think Mahomes is just the better quarterback as well. So it's tough for me to bet on the lesser quarterback of the two.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way Allen's been playing. I mean, last week was just a weird game. I mean, They only ran the ball 16 times, but not all 16 were even designed runs. I think it was more like maybe like 7, 6 that were actual designed runs. So that was kind of weird. I'm not exactly sure why they did that. And even like the first half, I think they had 2 runs the entire first half. So it was just really weird what they were doing. I don't see that happening again, even though, like you said, they don't have a great run game, but not to run the ball at all just doesn't make sense because you have to keep the defense honest at some point. You could always break a run or two, and no offensive lineman likes to pass block every single time they drop back. I mean, when you pass block, you're moving backwards, like naturally, obviously. When you run block, you're moving forward. So, just in offensive lineman mentality, they'd rather run block than pass block. Like I think they did it like 90% of the time last week. But um, I think like the question I think is the Bills defense going to play like they did last week? I mean, probably not. I don't think they will. They're not going to hold the Chiefs to 3 points or even 10 points. They're probably going to give up 20 plus points, maybe 30 points. But if they can cause a turnover or two, which Mahomes, he only threw 6 interceptions in the regular season, but it always seemed like it was just like he was trying to do too much, trying to force something down the field, make a big play when he didn't have to. Maybe that happens this game. You'd hope so for the Bills' sake because you can cause a turnover, switch field position. It's a momentum change. So could that happen? I mean, you have to see through the course of the game. But if something like that could happen, then uh, it would be a lot easier for the Bills' offense because the more times you have the ball than Mahomes, the better. So anytime that happens, it's going to work in your favor.
Yeah, 100%. I guess we'll just look at the injuries for the Chiefs. I mean, Hilaire is questionable. Watkins is questionable. Bell is questionable. I mean, obviously, if you're the Chiefs, you would love to have Edwards Hilaire back.
Yeah.
And you would, I mean, I guess, Watkins and Bell are kind of
Bell,
whatever, but
Bell's whatever. He
yeah.
could be a healthy scratch. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah. But I mean, you would ideally like to have Hilaire because even though you have Mahomes and you have Kelsey and you have Hill and you've got a good O-line and everything, you still need at least some sort of a running game. This Chiefs offense has been best when it does have a running game. When it had Hunt back in the day, the offense was a lot better in my opinion when it had Hunt versus when Hunt ended up getting cut and you had this mix of, basically practice squad type of running backs, and having that was huge. I mean, as a Patriots fan, when Hunt got cut, I was like, wow, that is, huge as a Patriots fan because he was just so much of a part of their offense, and having to game plan for somebody that special out of the backfield was huge. Now, I mean, is Hilaire that type of running back? I mean, I'm not exactly sure. I think I might be lower on him than some people, but yeah, I mean, obviously it'd be good if he plays. I mean, my score prediction, I'll go with my score prediction right now. I'm going to pick the Chiefs, obviously, like I've been saying, and I think it'll be 34. I'll go 34-27.
That was pretty close to what I was going to say. I was going to say 34-31 Bills. Um, I think it's going to be close. I think it probably just comes down to, I think you can say that this is probably about every single NFL game, but whoever has that costly turnover in a key situation, that's really what's going to happen. And I don't know. I think the Bills still haven't played a complete game yet. And if they can put it together this game, then they can beat the Chiefs. And people may say the Chiefs haven't played their best yet, but it's been 2 months where they haven't played their best. And it's just hard to flip the switch that easily against a much better team than they've played throughout, these last 2 months.
Yeah, that's kind of my conflict, is the whole flipping the switch thing, because I feel like for the most part, my thought process on teams is, let's look at your track record in the regular season. Have you improved? Have you gotten better? Are you healthy? And the Chiefs, I mean, yeah, they're pretty healthy, but have they improved in the regular season? No, they've probably gotten worse in the regular season.
Yeah.
Has Mahomes gotten better? No. I mean, he's still probably the best quarterback in the league, but he hasn't gotten better. This team hasn't looked better. I don't see the same personality, and personality in a good way, like this fire that the Bills probably have. The Chiefs kind of seem more relaxed than the Bills do, for sure. The Bills have had the tougher road to get to this place than the Chiefs have. But I'm going to bet on the Chiefs. I'm scared to bet against Mahomes. So that's kind of why I'm doing it. And I think, if this Chiefs team does flip the switch, which NFL teams don't really flip the switch. It's not flipping the switch is more of an NBA term.
Yeah.
LeBron's Cavs were a huge, that was basically that was, where that was kind of where it all happened. The flip the switch thing was, they'd be the 4th seed in the regular season and then they just destroy the East for the most part and they get to the finals. And now would they win those finals? Probably not. But yeah, I mean, we'll see if this Chiefs team does it. I'm betting that it happens, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills ended up winning and if the Chiefs looked flat and like they have, basically for the past 2 months. So
Yeah. I'm kind of going what you're saying, like in that, and I've said it, but them just not looking great these last 2 months, and it's just hard to just play your best game after all these games where you've looked not great. And even though Mahomes seems to be fine, he's still coming off a concussion, so you don't know exactly how he's gonna play. And then Hilaire coming off, he's been out a couple games. You don't know how he's gonna look. There's some games where he's great. There's some games where he's not. They're gonna need him to be great in order to uh, have a chance at like really winning this game, I'd say, because him. Well, you need to be able to run the ball for the Chiefs, like you said. 2018, when after they cut Hunt, they really just didn't have an answer at running back, and that kind of cost them down the stretch. And then 2019, even though they Damian Williams, who isn't like the greatest running back or anything like that, he was really good for them in the playoffs. This year he sat out, so they drafted Hilaire, they had Bell, but again,
I
he's
don't
kind
think
of a
they
non-factor.
envisioned Williams being a long-term answer
No, but he was
anyways.
great.
No, he
He was
was.
great for them last year.
He was definitely great in the postseason for sure. I mean, probably, he was probably the MVP of the Super Bowl. Not that he meant more in that game than Mahomes, but stat wise, I feel like the running game carried that game for the Chiefs a little bit more than the passing game, probably.
Yeah, so they're gonna need a running game, and again, if Hilaire's not great, I just don't trust their other running backs in order to do that. And I just think throwing the ball 50 plus times, it's just going to be, even though it's Mahomes and the Chiefs, it's still going to be hard to win games throwing the ball 50 plus times. It's just not like a recipe to win. So
Maybe me picking the Chiefs is just really a statement on how good I think Mahomes is. He's to that point where I don't know if I'm with the, if I have the same philosophy on any other quarterback other than maybe Brady, which is like, I'm just scared to bet against them. We've clearly seen, Mahomes, like I just said, Mahomes hasn't, shown it the whole year, but I could easily bet against Rodgers. In fact, I just did. I mean, I could easily get a bet against, Manning back in the day or whatever. For some reason, Mahomes is just so good. And, we've seen, for what we've seen from him and his MVP year and beyond is just incredible. And again, if he's able to flip the switch, even just himself, not even necessarily the whole Chiefs team in general, he could just carry this Chiefs team to a Super Bowl victory, to be honest. I mean, he's that good.
yeah, and I think there was a stat. I think he's 24-1 in his last 25 games or something like that, with the one loss being the Raiders game, which, that I think the game was like 41-34 or something like that. That was this year. So, yeah, I mean, he's only lost one game over his last 25 games. So it's not like, it's tough for me to pick against them, but I just think their team as a whole just isn't as good as they were last year, and they aren't playing as good as they are, at least on paper. So,
Yeah. And I guess that's it though, unless you have anything else to say about anything else, really.
um, I would say, I mean, I guess football wise, we talked about the Eagles hiring what was his name?
Sirianni.
Sirianni. The Texans still need a head coach, so it's not exactly clear who that is or is going to be, but I guess we'll see. I mean, the situation that whoever that gets it is a terrible situation because it seems like Watson is going to be traded, which we could talk. I mean, I'd assume it's going to happen, so we'll probably talk about it when it does happen. But it's really no clear cut candidates for that so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a hot candidate like a Dayball or if you're like a Dayball, you're not taking that Texans job, at least in my mind.
No.
Unless Watson for some reason wants to stay, if he gets his head coach of choice, which I don't even think in my opinion, from what I've really read and seen and heard from, the people that have the ins, it's over with. Watson's done. And, the Texans are just going to try to get as much as they can for him and ship him off. Ideally, you wouldn't ship him to anywhere in the division. It doesn't seem like they're going to. I know people have said like, oh, the Jags should trade the number one pick for Watson. I mean, what would you do, honestly? If you were the Jags, would you trade the number one pick for Deshaun Watson?
No, because you have to give up. No, because you still have to give up multiple other picks.
What if it
So,
was 1-for-1? Would you do it?
um, no, because I don't. The Jags aren't ready to win. I'd say it's
Yeah.
probably the same situation you've been with the Texans, where your team's not great, and even though he's a great quarterback, he's not going to be able to lead you to the playoffs. So I'd say probably not.
I wouldn't do it
And he's
either.
also and he's already making money. I know it's not he's making a lot of money, but like the cap hit actually isn't as much for his next like 2 years than you think it would be. But again, still, it's you have a guy on a rookie contract. You could have him for 5 years if you want him on rookie money, and you could always franchise him if you want. So I would clearly go. I would definitely go with
Yeah,
Trevor
I
Lawrence.
mean, 100%. The rookie contract is one of the most,
Yeah,
important parts about drafting a quarterback. If you can build, if the Jaguars draft Lawrence and he's, what we all think he is, and you can just build that roster around Lawrence in his rookie years, I mean, you're going to be a really competitive team in literally a year. As far as the Texans are concerned, again, like I don't know who wants this job. Whoever gets it, I mean, good luck. You've basically got no future. So we'll see. I mean, maybe you
yeah,
can recoup some picks when you trade Watson. You definitely will, but again, when you trade Watson, you'll have no quarterback. So you'd at least have to use one of those picks on a quarterback, I would assume. So it's honestly the Texans kind of just feel like they're going to be a bottom feeding team for the next while. As far as where Watson could or should go, I'm not exactly sure where he's going to go. I know the Jets have probably been the favorite rumor. Uh, what would the Jets? I mean, what do you think about Watson to the Jets as logistically?
Well, they have two first round picks this year and two first round picks next year. Obviously, they have the number two pick this year. So if the Texans liked Fields or Wilson, they could make that trade, whatever the trade would be. I heard he's worth three first round picks and then probably maybe like a third or a fourth, something like that. But if they like Fields or Wilson, you can make that trade, take the guy that you want. And again, they recoup some of that draft capital that they've lost with the Tunsil trade and other trades like the Dwayne Brown trade, other stuff like that. But um, if again, I think it comes down to if they really like the quarterback because if they trade Watson this year, I'd assume he's going to the Jets or the Dolphins. It seems like that. Like I don't think the 49ers or the Bears could make a trade that could get him.
Patriots
So
did.
maybe the Patriots, but probably I wouldn't
Probably
say so.
not. Probably not. Yeah, it seems
Um,
like Dolphins or Jets.
So you're rather getting the second pick or the fifth pick or the third pick. I mean, which is it's funny because it's your pick, but you're trading Deshaun Watson for it. But um, you'd have to like one of the quarterbacks. If not, then you may just have to trade him because it seems like he's just completely done and he doesn't. It's tougher to sit out in the NFL than it is the NBA, but he may just do that. Like for a quarterback who's already making the money, but I don't know. You have to love one of the two quarterbacks. I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens with Watson. We'll probably talk about it more when something actually occurs there. But
Yeah. And
that's
well, one more quarterback is that Phillip Rivers retired. That was a couple days ago. And the Colts, his money was up anyways. Brissett, his money's up. We talked about Wentz. That's not going to happen anymore. They're not going to trade him. But I think a perfect quarterback for them would be Matt Stafford. It seems like the Lions are done with him. They're probably going to trade him or maybe just cut him, kind of just release him. I think the Colts would be a perfect fit for him. It's, I think, a better version of Phillip Rivers, someone
yeah.
who, if you look at him, I mean, he's not that bad of a quarterback. Like we've always said this, he's a top 15 quarterback, and on a really good team, he could be that 12, maybe.
He could be better than Tannehill. And some people would say Tannehill's top
Yeah,
10.
yeah.
And I think he would, if he was on the Colts, I would think that Stafford would be better than Tannehill.
Look, yeah.
He's more
I mean, looking at
talented.
way more talented, and just looking at numbers, like Tannehill's numbers are really good, which they are. But if you were just to compare the two quarterbacks, I think mostly everyone would pick Stafford over Tannehill. And the Colts, I mean, they have a great offensive line. They have a pretty good defense, probably a top 10 defense, and they have Jonathan Taylor. They have a really good running back trio. And they have decent weapons on the outside. So I think that's a perfect situation. You may end up in the same scenario that you were in the Rivers where you're like 10-6, 11-5. You maybe win a playoff game, but I think it's worth it because
Well,
they're too good of a team to just go with a younger quarterback or, a random free agent, I think Stafford would be the perfect fit for
Yeah,
them.
sign or trade for Stafford. You probably wouldn't have to give up anything or really that much to get
Probably, yeah,
Stafford at
probably
this
not that
point.
much. No.
You might just be able to sign him and draft a quarterback. You don't have to draft him with your first round pick or anything necessarily, but get a quarterback you can put behind Stafford for a year, maybe two, maybe three. Develop him while Stafford plays. Yeah, you'll probably be in that same place where you're competing for the division with the Titans, 11-5, 10-6, 12-4 if you're lucky. But I mean, the difference between Stafford and Rivers is going to be Stafford ideally would be able to make those plays that are needed in the playoffs where Phillip Rivers kind of fell short. Also, just in terms of consistency, Stafford seems pretty much just objectively more consistent than Rivers at this point in their careers. I'm not gonna, worry about Stafford throwing 3 interceptions every couple weeks. Where with Rivers, that was kind of almost a reality with the Colts in a way. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, if I'd love to see Stafford get a chance to legitimately compete for a championship in his career because he's really never had a chance on the Lions. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And he's more mobile. He's a better arm talent. So yeah. And he's obviously younger. So that obviously helps. But I guess that's probably it. But I guess one last question. We said Rivers retired. I mean, do you think he's a Hall of Famer?
No, no, he's not. I mean, I guess my explanation on that is, obviously stats, he's basically around top 5 in most, yards, touchdowns,
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
stuff. But, first off, that's super misleading because we've clearly seen how the game has developed and changed over the years. And, even if 2005, when he was drafted in 2004, like if it wasn't the same game back then, 2004 was even much more progressive than it was back in, 1980s or whatever. So saying he's top 5 in this is kind of misleading in my opinion. Uh, we'll see the quarterbacks drafted now, like a Herbert, a Burrow. They're probably going to shatter all these passing records and stuff like that. Maybe not like a Brady or a Manning's yards and stuff like that, but I mean, Rivers will fall down in the list for sure. Postseason success, it just was never there. And I know the Chargers have never been a great franchise, but at some point you have to deliver. Manning did it with the 2 Super Bowls. And I mean, you could definitely say Rivers had a better regular season career than Manning. I would probably say that, but Manning got the 2 Super Bowls. Rivers didn't. Rivers has consistently underperformed in big playoff games. So to me, he's just not there. If he had a Super Bowl, he'd have a much better case, but he just doesn't. So for me, he's not. Will he actually make it in the Hall of Fame? I mean, maybe he will. I'm sure, the NFL's gotten slightly more lenient with it. I'm sure when he's like old, he'll probably get in. But, to me, is he a Hall of Famer right now? Definitely not.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think he is, but I think at some point he'll get in. Even though his numbers like will drop in the all-time standing list because it's just way more pass. So in like 15 years, he's probably going to be a lot lower than he is now. Like you said, he's like top 5 in almost like every single stat or top 10. But I think he was 5-7 in the playoffs. The one AFC Championship game was against the Patriots. I mean, he was on a torn ACL, and they only lost. I think it was 21-12 that they lost that game, and it was against the undefeated Patriots at the time. So it wasn't the easiest game ever. And he did play in the era of where you had some of the greatest quarterbacks of all time play. You had Manning, Peyton, and Eli, but obviously Peyton, Brady, Breeze, Rodgers, Roethlisberger. I mean, you had some great quarterbacks that were playing.
At some point, though, I mean, don't you have to compare them and be like, out of these, whatever, 7 quarterbacks that he's, kind of competed against for the past 15 years, he's probably 7 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely didn't have the best teams. In the beginning, I'd say he had some. I mean, he had really good teams. I mean, he had like LaDainian Tomlinson. He had some good defenses. Like I'm not totally familiar with the Chargers from like the middle 2000s, but like I do know they had some pretty good teams, and it always did seem like he never came up big in those games. And then the team itself just fell off. And then for those 6, 7, 8 years, they just never got back. But you're right. I mean, the quarterbacks that he did play against, he probably was if he wasn't the last guy, he was the second to last guy who played in that era. So it doesn't help. But I mean, the era that if you put him in other eras, it could be different. I mean,
Maybe.
he played against a guy who won 6 Super Bowls, another 2 more had 2. Brees had 1, Rodgers has 1, could possibly have 2, Roethlisberger has 2. So it's definitely a tough era to play in.
I mean, out of Brady, Manning, Eat Peyton, Breeze, Brady, Manning, Rogers, Breeze, Roethlisberger, Eli, and then Rivers. If I believe I didn't forget anybody there, right? I don't think I did.
No.
I mean, Rivers is the worst out of those 7, in my opinion, and I think that means a significant amount when those are the guys you're playing against. You can't really control what era you're playing in. And also, I mean, just even if you want to look at a singular year in any of these years in his career, not in a single year was he the best quarterback in the league, and probably not a single year was he the top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league. I mean, even in his best years, he was probably still behind Manning, Breeze, Rodgers, or Favre, or Brady. So it's just tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
You gotta at some point compete in those, in that category.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I would say if Eli only had one Super Bowl and didn't have two, it'd be a much more compelling argument, even though Rivers didn't win one, didn't even reach one, just because it's one and Eli. Like if you look at Rodgers and Breeze, they're clearly just better quarterbacks. Look on numbers, talent wise, more towards Rodgers, numbers more towards Breeze, but Manning, like him and Rivers are kind of similar. Like they're kind of similar players in the regular season, but he had the 2 Super Bowl runs that are going to make him a Hall of Famer. If he only had one, I think it'd even be more of a question. Obviously, if he had 0, I'd say he probably wouldn't be a Hall of Famer. I mean, maybe he's kind of in the same class as Eli. Like, if he didn't win one, he'd probably be in the same. He'd probably be the exact same situation that Phillip Rivers was in. That they
Talking about
had.
Breeze.
No, Eli.
Oh, I mean, he'd be even in a worse
Breeze would
situation.
be in because his numbers are.
No,
I
I know,
mean,
but yeah, no, Eli,
Eli would be in the
100%.
exact same situation where they didn't win one and they put up numbers, but they were never like the best quarterback. But they also had some bad numbers. Like they'd be I would say the exact same situation. But Eli won too, so that's the difference.
I mean, yeah, even when you look at their regular season records, Eli was 117. Rivers was better than that, or has been better than that.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, Rivers even probably had a better regular season career. I mean, I would say, for the majority of their careers, I would have taken Rivers over Eli, except for the playoffs, obviously. But
yeah. So I think we both agree on that. He's probably very good, but not Hall of Fame. But he'll probably get in, just because that just seems like how it is. If you the stats like that, and I don't know, it just seems like they're letting more people in than they were. But it's probably going to take him a little bit to get in. But yeah.
But that's pretty much it for this episode. We'll be back after the conference championship games. I'm calling Super Bowl. I'm calling Bucks and Chiefs. Brandon's going the complete opposite, Bills, Packers. We'll see what happens. But anybody who stayed to the end, appreciate you for watching. We should be kind of changing. My scenery should change in the near future. So should Brandon's. So stay tuned for that. We'll see how things go with COVID. It's kind of unpredictable, but yeah, we'll be back Sunday night.
Yep.